Hello and welcome to the Droid and Dragon Cantina, a podcast highlighting independent science fiction and fantasy authors. Our guest this week is Bria Rose, who is the author of Her Dark Promise. In this episode, we talked about what inspired her unusual retelling of the Beauty and the Beast story and the spicier side of writing dark fantasy. And due to some technical issues with the video in this recording, this episode will be audio only. So, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you for having me.
So why don't you tell everybody about your books that you've got out there?
Well, I am a newer author. I currently have one book out. I published it last Halloween, so Halloween 2024, and it's called Her Dark Promise. This is my baby. She's beautiful. It is a dark romance, Beauty and the Beast retelling. We got some really cool tropes in there, like why choose. She's a shadow mommy, so if you're a Shadow Daddy fan, then maybe this might be right up your alley. There's also some other tropes like found family. And then, of course, we have some of those darker themes where I decided to give all of my characters an insane amount of trauma. But that just kind of is the course for these types of books. But it definitely is a Beauty and the Beast retelling. But where mine differs is that it has Belle being the beast. And I don't just mean she turns into a beast. She's just beastly. So she's beastly in her nature. So again, it's her trauma that makes her act out against others. And that's kind of like my twist. And so then we have the Beast and Gaston characters where they are brothers and they go ahead and get trapped in her castle. One brother is against it while the other brother is more than happy to be there.
So what inspired this idea of, kind of taking this classic story and kind of putting what sounds like a very different spin on it?
Yeah. So ever since I was a child, I have been in love with Disney. My baby room was the Fab Five: Mickey, Minnie, Donald, Goofy, Pluto. And I was in love with it. I actually worked at Disneyland for about 6, 7, 8-ish years until COVID. And so Disney is a huge influence on my life. And then I started reading ACOTAR. For those of you who don't know, it is A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas. And a part of me was like, I want to do this. I want to write something. I love Beauty and the Beast. Let me try to figure something out. And I was actually in the shower when an idea came up. And I'm like, I immediately called my best friend in the shower. And I was like, I have this idea. What do you think? I think it could be something really special. And 2 years later, it turned into this crazy book.
So had you written any like short stories or anything like that before? Or is this kind of, did you always kind of have the storytelling bug, or is it you just kind of found it all of a sudden?
So funny you mentioned that. The best friend that I called, I want to say it was junior or senior year of high school. We were like, let's just come up with some like cool, silly names for a book. She wanted to major in writing or English, and she wanted to be a writer. And I'm just like, I love naming things. Let's do this. So we got a whiteboard out and we started saying, oh, this is a cool name. Maybe they're married to each other and maybe this is their child. And oh, what if this crazy thing happened? And then it just kind of evolved from there. And we set it aside. I'd say about less than 10 years later. I'm like, I want to get back into that. Can we write that? And so we started brainstorming again, and I wrote it. I wrote the whole book, and then I handed it over to her, and she has a lot of things going on. She's like, hey, I don't really have the time to invest in this at the moment. I would love to get back in there, but I got schooling and this, and I'm like, totally understand, but I can't wait. I have officially been bitten by the writing bug. I have so many ideas. I have to do something. And that's when the whole idea for Her Dark Promise came. And then I'm like, you know what? While you're busy doing your thing, totally respect it. I'm going to do my thing. And now it's turning into all of this. It's kind of crazy.
So did you find that process of writing that novel daunting? Or was it, or was it something like I know different people have, kind of different ways. Like some people, like they're always waiting for a burst of inspiration, and then I think there are people who can treat it almost kind of like, keeping banker's hours. I'm going to work on it from this time to this time, like every day. Which of those, how would, was that, did you kind of take on that process, or were you kind of writing it like in fits and starts?
Well, the book that I wrote in 3 months, and then I couldn't wait. I had to go right into writing my book. And I decided the way I so far have found that I enjoy writing, that kind of sparks the most inspiration, is writing it in chunks. So whatever brings me the most inspiration in the moment, I'll just kind of like word vomit. So whatever is in my mind, I don't care about grammar. I don't care about anything else. And I then put it together like a puzzle, kind of piece things together. Like, okay, I think this would kind of go well here. This would go well here, or take a lot of it out. I wrote my book in a few months. Her Dark Promise, the first draft, because the final draft is very different. I found an editor on Fiverr. She's incredible. I'm all, hi. And she really was like, hey, so great bones. She was trying to be nice. She's like, great. But how about we go a different route? And we just started talking about different ideas. And she really helped to transform, my book. So the writing process became a lot easier when she got to be on board. I mean, I talked to her probably more than I talked to my mom, which really fun with my mom. I would write like 2 a.m, 5 a.m, midnight at work. Don't tell my work. Anywhere I can, I'm just like, I got to get these words out. So while yes, I write all the time, I do have bouts of writer's block. I had like 4 months where I just had 0 ideas, which was really unfortunate. But my editor really helped to be like, okay, let's rethink this. How about we do this? And writing is daunting, especially now that I'm wanting to write my second book. Now I'm like, oh gosh, I got to do this again. Okay, it's going to be interesting.
So it sounds like between, being a plotter or a pantser, would you accurately describe yourself as more of a pantser, or is it a little bit of both?
I would definitely say it's a little bit of both, because I love outlining, like step by step. I'm like, okay, this is kind of, I like plotting the big things. I don't know how, because I call them the boring bits. The boring bits are like when there's no unaliving, when there's no sexy time, when there's, just like the major events, the major parts of my book, just like essential conversations. I don't plan those because I don't know how it's going to fit yet. I do plot the bigger stuff, definitely. So definitely both.
So for I guess like the world building aspect of it, were you kind of just sticking to the kind of traditional medieval model of it, or were you kind of taking some liberties and doing your own things with, certain places and, backdrops here and there?
I really thought about how I wanted my world to look. And I knew I wanted to stick to the story as much as I could without going into Disney territory. I definitely want to stay away from that. This is definitely a reimagining, retelling with definitely big elements. I got the library in there. I got the ballroom scene, a really crazy ballroom scene, so I have like the major parts of it, but world building specifically, Beauty and the Beast is set. Of course, she has her small village, her provincial town, and then we have the castle. I knew that I wanted a town, and I knew I had to have the castle. But my provincial town is definitely a lot darker than the movie version. I I can go into it a little bit if you want, but it is definitely darker. But I wanted definitely to keep it at the castle because that's where she's cursed. Because my Belle character, Calathea Everhart, that's where she's stuck. She was cursed to be alone, unloved forever. So she is cursed to stay on her lands. And so a lot of the story happens in this one place. I knew it had to be set in France. I wanted it to be in medieval times. And with this story, I really dug deep into like what kind of foods they ate, so all the foods they would have eaten at that time. And like the Be Our Guest song, if one of the parts is, specifically from that song, like try the gray stuff, it's delicious, that whole little scene where it's beef ragu, cheese souffle, I forget the rest. But yeah, so I did my research and I wanted to be France, middle of the woods. She's surrounded by the forbidden forest. They're kind of like up on a hill. So they're very isolated, very hard to get to, just like in the story.
So what made you want to put the Belle character into put her in beast mode instead of putting the guy there?
I don't know. That is such a good question. I wish I could answer it. It was just a thought. I'm like, well, what if Belle was the beast? I don't think I've read any stories where she was the one, who changed. And I'm like, oh, I don't really want her to change into a beast, kind of like Fiona and Shrek. I didn't want her to like be a beast and then a girl, back and forth. That just didn't really work out with me. But then I'm like, because I wanted my original story to kind of be self-forgiveness and self-love. That's kind of like what breaks the curse. So that's kind of like what started. And I'm all about girl power, boss babes, things like that. So it's a really good question. It was just kind of like a thought that happened. And I'm like, you know what? This is it. This is the story.
Well, I like that idea because I feel like we've seen a lot of things like where people were, kind of doing more female protagonists, but there's some people everyone, like I feel like there's sometimes you'll see where they're almost afraid to give them that kind of human quality or any kind of flaws. Right. And but that's what always makes characters good, like having to overcome something or having to learn from like mistakes. And it sounds like you said you kind of did it where it's like, we're going to really stack the deck for this character and then give them something to work through or having to overcome.
I really put her through the ringer. I will always apologize to her. And I'm like, I'm sorry, Calathea, please forgive me. I really put her through it. She, just not to ruin the story, but she definitely...
We don't want to give the whole story away, but yeah.
I don't want to, but just know that she is vengeful. She's angry. She is guilt-ridden. Her entire family was taken away from her in a matter of, everyone that she loved is now gone, and so now she's dealing with like, would they have loved me now? How she was, she was betrayed, which is, she was cursed. So someone had to betray her, that's not really giving anything away. But she's dealing with these conflicting emotions of like, she's not worthy. She's not worthy of love. She has addictions, as you can see in the story, some adult addictions, and she doesn't care. She decided that she was like, you know what? I'm going to play into this villain character that people are portraying me as. But she's not really a villain. She cares too much. And so she's kind of tricked herself into believing that she's the villain when in reality, everybody who comes across her, who doesn't have any ulterior evil motive. I do quotations because the people around her, how do I put this? She only harms those who intend to harm her or the people that she cares about.
Right. She's not out victimizing. It's more just like, I'll hurt the people who are trying to hurt me. But if you don't start none, there won't be none.
100%. Leave me alone. I'm in my castle. I'm cursed. I get it. I've been here for 370 years old. Like, she is 370. which is actually pretty significant. So for those who read my book, make sure to pay attention to the little Easter eggs, because 370 people worked on the original Beauty and the Beast movie.
Oh.
And then we have, so Calathea, there's no connection there. I just loved the name. But Everhart. So Everhart is the last name of the voice actor who voiced Maurice, her dad.
Oh, look at you.
Which is perfect, because that's such a good last name for a kingdom.
Yeah. So in addition to Disney, what were some of your other like influences? Who were some of the other, writers, or, what else were getting into that was kind of lighting your fire?
Besides Sarah J. Maas, that was a huge one. That was the person who got me really, who lit a fire under me to write this. So thank you, Sarah J. Maas. Disney, Sarah. Honestly, a lot of it just came from reading books, watching movies. I'm a huge anime fan. So a lot of the influence just comes from the shows that I watch, the books that I read, and I try to read books with similar, I guess you could say, vibes or tropes that I wanted to have in my book. So like Haunting Adeline, I don't know if you're aware. Yeah. So it's a good book. So just kind of reading different things, reading and watching shows, going on walks. For some reason clears my mind and just keeps that inspiration moving.
So what other like shows were kind of, helping you, form your ideas?
Gosh, I go through too many of them, but
Because I know it's like, even though you're writing, you're still getting it. Like, it's not just strictly getting your idea from other novels. I mean, you can get ideas from anywhere, even if it's just like songs or like, the music, whatever music you're listening to, or, whatever movies you're watching, or even video games. If, for people like nowadays, like got video games where you can literally go watch the cut together cinema scenes. So, I mean, like storytelling is everywhere. So.
Oh yeah. A lot of inspiration actually came from music. So I like finding independent artists, and I like adding them to my book talk Spotify playlist. That's kind of talks about, like, there's one, it's called Morally Gray. And it's just like Morally Gray, what can I say? Gray's my favorite color. And I'm like, yes, gray is my favorite color. So just kind of like that darker headspace that I kind of had to be in, watching. It was just it's a whole bunch. I don't really know anything specific, but just reading people's also like true stories about like, how do I write a woman who is so depressed? Like this girl cannot die. She's tried to do certain things to not keep her here. Nothing's worked, so she's kind of going crazy a little bit. So it's like, I've never been in that situation. How do I write someone like that? Like 13 Reasons Why, how do I accurately portray this in a way that's not romanticizing, those certain actions? Because I don't want to do that. It's not romantic. It's desperate. How do I write that? So,
yeah, because I guess you want to portray something like that with a certain degree of realism, where you don't feel like you don't want to feel like I guess necessarily like you're exploiting it.
Yeah, exactly.
So like, are you actually trying to do like any like other researches like on mental illnesses or depression and stuff to kind of inform all that, or are you?
A lot of my stories. So I am another author. Sorry. Thank you for reminding me. Huge inspiration. I don't know how I could forget. Rena Kent, I'm talking to you right now. Can we please be best friends? Because I love how she writes a little bit of psychopaths. I will admit, people who are depressed, people who have mental illnesses, and she doesn't sugarcoat anything. Even after the story where they have a happily ever after, they still have issues afterwards. There's still problems, and that lasts years down the road. I'm just so inspired by the way she's able to, I feel, present it in a way that's not romanticizing. And so I draw a lot of information of like my mental illness stuff from her.
Well, was it the famous saying, the secret to a happy ending is knowing when to roll the credits.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
So we're just going to roll the credits right here, and we're not going to get into all this. Right now, they're in a good spot. We're going to leave them there, and then fade to black.
Yes, I love a good epilogue. Just a little glimpse about like what are they doing, and I am obsessed with my epilogue. I feel like my characters are finally in a place. I'm not going to say which characters, but they just are just so easygoing with each other, and it's just so nice to see after everything that I put them through. I will admit, I did that. That they found what it is. Well, I almost said something, but I'm like, nope, reel back in.
You were talking about, like, so you mentioned your next book. So is that something that's already kind of in the works? Like how deep into it are you, or is it still kind of just like in the embryonic stage in your brain?
No, it is full go. I'm so excited. It is a spicy Pinocchio retelling.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. So he, I don't know what I can say, what I can't say on the podcast.
You're pretty free to go on here. I don't know how, I mean, let's, and I don't usually like to censor too much. So,
okay. Well, he's a sex doll who gets sold to a high profile couple, and it's more of like a throuple situation.
So it was like, what inspired that? If
my editor and I were talking about the next book and like the next kind of like the lineup. I have so many ideas. I have you ever watched Vampire Diaries?
Oh, yeah, I've seen it. Yeah. I actually watched the originals like all the way through. I've seen Vampire Diaries in places. I watched the originals because my brother is actually in it. Because they film it here in Atlanta, and he was like a featured extra in quite a few episodes.
Okay, so Klaus, I believe that he was endgame with Caroline. And so I definitely want to write their story. And so I was telling her, I'm like, okay, then I have a bunch of ideas. And I'm like, okay, girl, what do we do next? What is the next lineup? I know that Klaus and Caroline story is going to be a huge universe. Like I'm expecting I want a trilogy with that one. And then I want a whole bunch of standalones of the friend groups kind of getting together. Kind of like Rena Kent, our Legacy of God series. Love you, Rena. So very similar to that vibe. But that is like a whole universe. That's like a year out. I told my editor, I'm like, I need something quick. I need something maybe like novella, maybe, I don't know. What do you think? And then I was kind of wanting to stick to the fairy tale retelling. I don't want to kind of do a contemporary piece. And everyone's like,
it's almost like you're kind of almost getting in like anthology territory where you've kind of got like, it's maybe not, necessarily a serial approach, but you kind of have just like a group of things together.
Yeah.
Or you're kind of doing that and kind of building a universe that way.
Yes. And so we were going down the list of all these movies, and then I just off the wall, I wasn't really serious about it until I sat back and like, oh, that actually is funny. Because I pitched it the same way. I'm like, hey, what if he's a sex doll who gets sold to like somebody, like a couple, or I don't know. Like it just, and she's like, why do I low key love that? And I'm like, yeah, why do I low key love that? Like I said, it was an off the wall comment that I really didn't mean to go anywhere, but it did. And I've done a few book signings. Shout out to Barnes Noble at the Art and Fair location, because they have really taken care of me book signing wise. And I love that team. But when I'm like talking to people like readers and I'm like, hey, would this sound cool? And they're like, yeah, yeah, that does sound really cool. And if you can do it right, if you could do it in a way that's engaging, then 100%.
So when you're talking about getting spicier, we're talking about like R-rated, or are we getting into NC-17 territory? Just for the people who know kind of know what to expect.
My stuff is pretty explicit.
Okay. I mean, we're not shaming anybody here for that.
Yeah.
We're just kind of like, just so like if someone's wanting to go in there and they say, like, I don't know, like what's like your level of commitment to this. So like, cause I know some people, I've talked to other people who like some people like, depending on what genre you're in, if you're kind of getting young adult, you might keep it PG-13. Then you got other people like, they'll get into like, you get a good hard R, and then there's you kind of get into areas where like some people might say, like, okay, wait, you might feel like you have some explaining to do if you get caught with this book on your shelf.
Yeah, definitely. Some people are like, oh my gosh, you're like, this could be in schools. Before I explain things to them, I'm like, no.
This will be the one that the kids have to like smuggle in there, because there was always people doing that kind of stuff back. At least I know that when I was in school, there was always someone like, oh wait,
Yeah.
It may not be meant for especially because like teenagers, they're gonna find that stuff.
Oh yeah. My book is on, Amazon, so it's very easy to get a hold of, and Barnes & Noble, so it's
not that we're advocating them reading, so like something like that, but
no, but I will say like Wattpad is a thing, and I think AO3. So a lot of people are like, yeah, I was like 13 reading these crazy stories that my parents had no idea about. I'm like, yeah, that's pretty young for these kind of stories. Now that I'm a little bit older, I'm like, you don't need to read those. It's fine.
Yeah. So like, have you gotten any weird feedback because of it? That'd be the thing I would worry about for anyone. If like an author's doing this stuff, I imagine at some point you can maybe attract some weirdos.
No, it's more of people who you were not the target audience. Like I received my first 1-star review on Amazon, and when I read the review, I'm like, it wasn't for you, honey. It's not like you're not reading Harry Potter. My book is not Harry Potter at all. It has magic, 100%, but not. Yeah, no. Like for example, I wish I could show you, but like I had some like fan art made, and I had a comic strip made of one of my scenes where, like I said, she is a shadow mommy, so she can mold shadows into forms, and she likes putting certain forms into certain things with her male consort, if you understand my thing, what I'm trying to say. So like, yeah.
We won't paint too graphic a picture because we don't want, the YouTube censors to.
Yep. So it's definitely, not for you, honey. Not for you.
I mean, not everything is for everybody. So, just.
Exactly. That's why I love reading. There's so many different things that people can read, or people, that are interested. And I do like my more tame, young adult, Cruel Prince, amazing. Love the world building. I'm really enjoying these darker stories.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like I said, different strokes for different folks, man. And there's something out there, for everybody. And I'm just always fascinated by, like, I wonder how much of the book that the person read before they gave it the 1-star review. I wonder, did they power all the way through, or did they just get at a certain point like they were just done with it?
Yeah, and I try to do trigger warnings. I try to warn you on my website, in the book, in the very beginning. I think on Amazon there's a few. I try. I can only do so much.
It's just, it just fascinates me. Like for a one, like how hard did you work for that 1-star review? I can't help but wonder, like when you see someone like do that on there, you go like, why did you even bother?
It's so funny. I love telling my uncle all of sometimes the 3 stars. And then he's like, well, what did they say? And I tell him what they said. He's like, well, why would they even review it? That's so rude. Do they know that your stars will go down? He gets so upset on my behalf, and it's very sweet, and I love it. And I do love telling him some the lower stars and what they said. He's like, that's not even right. They didn't even read it then. He didn't read it, but yeah, it was just fine. I don't want him to.
Well, I mean, I guess if you're doing anything, well enough, you're going to get some haters, or I feel like haters are inevitable at some point.
100%. That's why I know I'm doing something right. If I have someone complaining about it, I'm getting big enough to where, I have some people complaining, and, I'm just happy. I'm like, when I say the haters, is kind of like, keep commenting, help me get out there a little bit more.
So one of the best quotes I heard about that was someone says, well, they can't bite you in the ass if you're not already in front of them.
100%. I definitely agree with that statement.
So as we have hit the 30-minute mark, tell everybody where they can find you online if they want to, learn more about your stuff, or, at you on social, if that's your thing.
Yeah, so I'm everywhere. I am definitely mainly on TikTok, Instagram, at author Bria Rose, not Bria Rose, BRIAROSE. Same thing. So across all my platforms is author Bria Rose. Website, my Gmail, my email, TikTok, Instagram. You can find me, buy my books on Barnes & Noble and Amazon. Again, all those links can also be found on my website. And if you join my email list, you'll get the first 5 chapters of Her Dark Promise, along with a lot of other really cool things. Like I had this made for my book for a special edition, not yet on sale. I don't know how I'm going to sell it yet or do giveaways. So just stay tuned, and that's where you can find all the updates.
And what's the website proper again, the web address?
authorbriarose.com.
Outstanding. Well, thanks for coming out there and we'll be looking for your stuff out there.
Thank you so much again for having me.
That will be all for this episode. This podcast has been a Carcutta Media production. To learn more about this show or other podcasts, visit carcuttamedia.com/podcasts or follow us on social media at Carcutta Media. This recording or any portion thereof may not be reproduced or used in any manner whatsoever without the express written permission of the publisher, except for use of brief quotations in a review. Copyright 2025 by Carcutta Media. All rights reserved.